Okay, I think we are now officially live.
What's up?
How's it going, folks?
Yeah, man. We have not done a live stream in a while, have we, dude?
It's been over a year, maybe 2 years, or coming up on 2 years. It's been a bit.
If you guys are new to us, we are the Supercast. I'm the Super Foch. He is the Stevesy. And we're going to talk about something that we wanted to do a video on for quite a while, but just haven't had the time, had interruptions. And that is, of course, we're talking about 007, some of our favorite movies of all time, if you didn't already know. And this one is definitely one of my favorites, and I know one of yours, and that's of course is The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with this film lately. I don't. It started really at the beginning of this year where
Yeah.
I put this on after I'd watched another film,
Mm.
and I just was hooked. I was just like, I cannot believe how fun this film is.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's almost like candy, and I just became obsessed with it. I know a lot of people say it is not a very good Bond film. They say it's not very well made, that it's rushed, its
Yeah.
production value is kind of crappy compared to a lot of the others. But I don't know. I will always put this one up on a
Mm.
pedestal. I really like it a lot, and I can't wait to talk about it today.
No doubt. This is a film that has everything going for it, in my opinion. I feel like it has the great Bond, of course, Mr. Roger Moore, who it's his birthday. Was it yesterday or today?
It's today, I think.
Yes, today.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this. He would be 97 today.
Wow. Well, so arguably the best Bond, arguably the best Bond villain in Scaramanga, a great song, and just a lot of fun this film is. I mean, to me, it's the quintessential Bond film. It is what you want uh, in the perfect Bond film, and you know, it's just not a lot you can say against this film. Uh, Granted, we love it. I'm sure there's people that maybe not as much as us, but I don't see how. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people will shoot it down and say the production value is not good. The story is all over the place. In fact, it doesn't make that much sense sometimes. Um, but for me, I could just roll with that stuff because I know what I'm getting into with this. This is
Right.
Guy Hamilton. This is Roger Moore. This is Tom Mankiewicz writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually my favorite era of Bond, just to kind of revisit a lot, Abby. I know a lot of people are all about the modern stuff, and but to me, the '60s and the '70s Bond, especially this little run with Roger from about
Mm.
since he comes on the scene all the way up till For Your Eyes Only, like it is just what I go to when I think of Bond because it's all about escapism, and to me, that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a Bond film is just going on this adventure, going to check out some cool locations, story. Yeah, we'll take it or leave it as long as I'm having a good time while I'm watching it. That's all that matters, really. And it looks, speaking of story, it looks like you're being like engulfed by like a dark shadow or something. What's going on with your background?
Sorry, man. I was trying to share our thing on Twitter. My bad, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. I think that when you talk about a James Bond film, what do you need to have in order to make a great James Bond film? And like I said, I think it starts with the villain. I think you have a good antagonist. And what can you say about Christopher Lee? I mean, the guy he's just oozes awesomeness. He's not like a big presence. That's one thing that surprised me my last viewing. He's not an overwhelming presence as far as like Goldfinger, yeah, Goldfinger or something like that. But I think that's what makes him so good is that he's quietly a really bad guy.
Well, I kind of disagree with you. I think he
Okay.
actually, that's what a lot of people say about this film is he kind of steals it because
Hmm.
he's almost cooler than Bond in Bond film. I
Yeah,
mean, the film is named after the man with the golden gun. He's our
it's
guy,
true. It's true.
and we kind of get that in the pre-title
Hmm.
sequences, uh, where we don't get a Bond doing a cool stunt or anything like we normally get in a Bond film. It's this guy and he's in this sort of cat and mouse game with this guy that came to kill him, all arranged by Knick-Knack, the butler. We'll get to him more later, but we get to see Scaramanga show off. He's the one that's doing the cool Bond stuff at the beginning of the film, and that's just kind of what I like about this is the villain is on par with Bond.
Good
He's
point.
as he is as strong and as skilled as Bond. He dresses like Bond. He lives the good life, sitting around drinking all sorts of wine and champagne and stuff. He's got a girl that just basically is at his beck and call. I mean, this is kind of what Bond would be if Bond decided to go rogue or just go bad or something. And
Right.
that's what really fascinates me about Christopher Lee and his character Scaramanga.
That's a very good point. And let's talk about Scaramanga because he's one of these villains that he's got a reputation, kind of like Goldfinger. He's got this reputation, and I think some history. I think there's some history with Bond prior to this. I think they know each other pretty well. Um, Obviously, this is based. This is all obviously based on the novel "Men with a Golden Gun." Do you have any history with the book, man, and how it compares to the film?
I remember checking out the library and reading it, and
Mhm.
I would say they're anything to do with each other.
Right.
There is a guy named Francisco Scaramanga. He's got a
Mhm.
golden gun, but the book takes place mainly in like Jamaica,
Mhm.
where a lot of the Bond novels do. And I guess for this one, they were just like, "Hey, we don't want to go back to Jamaica again. We're
Right.
gonna set it somewhere else because this one is in the Southeast Asia, and that's a big part of this film. Is what makes it great, in my opinion, is these locations of Hong Kong, Macau, Thailand, and just Scaramanga's base. I think it's called Phuket is the name of his island,
Mhm.
and I think that's really cool. And I know the characters changed a lot because in the book, I think he uses a different gun. It's like just a regular six shooter. He's more like a cowboy type guy.
Mhm.
And in this one, like I said, he's like the dark doppelganger for Bond or something. He dresses
Mhm.
like Bond, and he just lives that lifestyle. And I think that's a big part of what I like about the Bond films is they take this sort of premise from the story
Mhm.
and they build upon it. They make it cinematic. They make it escapist. They make it more fun, even more than probably the books are.
Mhm. Yeah. And let me just say right here, man. Like, I'm not a gun expert. I'm not, arsenal or anything like that. But I find it interesting when the film opens and you have your really introduction to Scaramanga when he has his first battle with I don't even know if is the guy named. He's just some bad guy.
He's just some gangster dude. It's the same guy from Diamonds Are Forever. So I like to think there may be some continuity that this guy that
Probably,
threw
probably.
Plenty O'Toole out the window is also coming out here to hunt Scaramanga.
But what I find interesting, again, I'm not a gun expert or shooting or anything, but if you noticed how that guy shoots, he's like shooting from the hip, and he's just like fire. And I'm like, that cannot be accurate. How can you be accurate shooting like that? That part always kind of gets me because it's like that's not real. People don't actually shoot a gun like that, right? I mean,
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah, and he doesn't hit anything. He just
no.
and I guess that's the cool part I used to like about this scene as a kid is
Mm,
just Scaramanga's fun house. That he's got his house decorated with all this weird wax dummies and stuff that shoot guns to kind of just throw off
yeah.
whoever comes into his house. It's like I don't know Kevin McAllister if he had a weird sort of circus fetish or something. It's very funny in my opinion, and it starts the film off very memorable. I love this
Yeah.
scene, and I love it. They do like a callback to it at the end of the film where they basically the film's like full circle. We're back in this
Mm,
fun house again. This time
yeah.
he's battling Bond, and I guess as we're talking about
Yeah.
that, why did Scaramanga have a wax dummy of Bond just perfectly made? I mean, whoever made that for him,
I
it's just kind of an odd
I know,
thing.
right? I was about to bring that up because I was like, not only is it a Bond statue, but it is a lifelike interpretation of James Bond. I mean, like, is he in love with him secretly? I mean, it's just is there something going on deeper than what you see on screen? I don't know. I guess you be the judge. You interpret that the way you want to. Um, But also, there's another interesting relationship that I think that I guess in my head started to think about this time, and I don't know if you have or not, but the relationship between Knick Knack and Scaramanga, and what's going on there. Have you? What do you think of that partnership? Do you feel like that they're all like it's a? What are your thoughts? I'll just ask that.
I just I think this is just screenwriting. Just like let's put these two things together, because I guess in Hamilton's early film he had
Uh,
Goldfinger and he had Oddjob with him,
right,
so he's
right,
like now we have this little miniature guy because obviously
yeah,
Scaramanga doesn't really need a henchman.
yeah,
So I guess Nick Nack's just there for his amusement. He's like, here's this little guy that hangs out with me,
yeah.
and I guess he occasionally finds people to help me practice my game a little bit,
Hmm.
fights people over to my house, and I don't know. They don't really explain it. Maybe they met while they were in the circus or something. Maybe Nick Nack was in the
Maybe.
as like a sort of a sideshow. They don't really answer it, and I don't know.
Hmm.
I think that's just sets up. Same thing with the wax dummy.
Yeah.
With this film, you just roll with it. If you
Mm.
question it too much,
Oh yeah.
you're not going to enjoy this film. And there's actually sometimes in the film where even me as a diehard with it, I
Mm.
have to just say, "Shut up, brain,"
Yeah, yeah,
because characters will kind of just change in the middle of a
yeah.
scene, and you're like, "Okay, so why did that happen?"
Yeah. Mm.
And you can't really question that too much. You kind of just have to roll with it.
And I think on that note, you got to talk about the sheriff that Bond ends up. Now this they meet for the first time in this movie, right?
No, Living to Let Die was before
That's
this.
right. Ah man, guys, my memory's terrible. But it's the same guy, right? Like he's playing the same exact character.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into JW later. I'm not ready
Okay,
to
well,
unpack that yet.
all right,
Yeah,
cool,
let's
dude.
keep it Scaramanga a little bit more, then we'll move on to the man of the
Yeah,
hour,
good
James
idea.
Bond.
That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so yeah, Christopher Lee. You said you didn't like his performance, or you're saying
No, I,
that?
I do like it. I do like his performance. I think that I might have said I don't know something about it when I watched it the other day for the first time, getting ready for when I thought we were going to record this earlier. Something about it rubbed me wrong. But then I went back, I watched the film again, and I was like, all right, I don't know what I was on the other day that made me not like his performance because I think it's an absolute brilliance. I think it's a brilliant performance. Like you said, he commands the screen when he is on screen. Um, I guess my problem with him is not even him. It's the way he dies. It's his death scene. It's like it's so anticlimactic for such a great character, in my opinion. I don't know if you want to get into his death right now, but
No.
like I guess that's the biggest gripe for me as far as the character of Scaramanga. Otherwise, I think Christopher Lee, like I said, is a great adversary for Bond. I think he really complements Bond. I think they share a lot of the same charisma, especially with Christopher Lee and Roger Moore's interpretation of these characters. I think I don't know if complements the right word, but they really fit together as far as adversaries.
Yeah, I think so. I think they did a good job of like mirroring them.
Mm,
Christopher Lee, obviously, very tall guy, so he just kind
mm-hmm.
of towers over Roger a little bit. But I like his character because he he's very sadistic.
Mm,
He gets a joy from killing, and
right.
that's kind of an interesting thing because
Mm,
I don't think Bond is totally on that level. I think he kills for his job, but he does it with a different sort of
right.
sneer. Scaramanga does. Like
Mm,
Scaramanga enjoys catching people off guard and sort of catch them in his trap or something and killing them. Meanwhile, Bond, it's like, nah, I'm gonna do this because I have to.
right.
And I don't know. I think that's just an interesting sort of dynamic we have, and we don't see it a ton in Bond
Mm,
films where
mm,
we have a villain who is on par with Bond as far as being a killer, being
mm,
a skilled sort of adversary. And I think what's neat about this, and this is
mm.
cool because we've spent so long getting ready for this episode,
Yeah.
uh, I got to learn a little bit more about Christopher Lee,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently this was like in the war he was sort of a special service guy like this. He was a secret
Huh.
agent of sorts,
Wow.
and that's where he and Ian Fleming, like, they're related to each other, but they also
Hmm.
both did sort of spy work in the war.
Yeah.
And I think that just adds a little more gravitas to his performance, just the fact that he's lived this lifestyle before.
Wow.
And I think it's cool how Guy Hamilton got a different performance out of him, because he's been
Hmm.
a bad guy before.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's been Dracula and everything, but
Hmm.
I think with this film, he's having a lot of fun. He's getting to kind of ham it up a little bit. He, especially toward the end of the film, with that whole monologue that he and Bond share at the dinner table.
Hmm.
Uh, it's great acting, and I really like what Christopher Lee brought to this performance.
Yeah, it's an amazing performance. And if you don't know, as you mentioned a second ago, Christopher Lee is related to the author of the Bond novels, Mr. Evan Fleming. Of course, this is one of them. And so he's already got a lot of knowledge of probably not just the character of Bond, but also of Scaramanga and, that sort of thing. And then with his military history, I mean, so he brings a lot of legitimacy to the role, and I think that that's also what Roger Moore does for James Bond. I like what you said a minute ago. I want to go back to what you said a minute ago about these two characters that basically do the same thing but for different motivations. Bond kills because that's the mission. He has to stop whoever and whatever, and death is included in that. Whereas, and I don't think he gets any kind of a thrill. I don't think he gets any kind of excitement over doing that, where like Scaramanga does. And I think that that's what the big that separates these two characters. One does it for duty, and one does it for whatever, excitement, money, whatever. And so I think they really complement each other in a lot of ways. Um, I love the chemistry with Bond and Scaramanga. I love when they do finally meet how um, how alike they are in some ways, and then how very different they are in some ways. And I'm not just talking about the whole death thing, but I think just how they approach the women that's in their lives. Obviously, they share one, and then one gets killed because of him. I had forgotten that part, and so there's a lot of darkness in this film. I mean, this is not just a good old. I mean, there's a lot of darkness with this, and the fact that this girl gets shot in the middle of this, arena or whatever, and she's just sitting there, and you're like, that's just, that's really dark. It's just, so I forgot how deep and dark they go, and talk about that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's one thing I like about this film so much
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
how dark it is,
Yeah.
because you have obviously Scaramanga, who's like the dark sort of mirror image of Bond, but
Hmm.
also it's one of those things where uh, just Bond as general is a lot darker in this. Like, the performance by Roger is darker than he would later get into. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what we like about Live and Let Die jointly,
Hmm.
is sort of this harder nature of Bond. Is
Yeah.
this Roger Moore Bond? He smokes cigars. This Roger Moore
Hmm.
Bond, he drinks Jack. At least he did Live and Let Die.
Hmm.
But in this one, he seems even meaner. Like, especially
Yeah.
that scene with Lazar, where he basically takes the gun and aims it at the guy's crotch, and it's like, "Hey, tell me where you're getting this bullets sent off to, or it's gonna be the end of you, dude."
Yeah.
And I don't see him later on really pulling off a scene like that. I mean, that's what another reason why people don't like this film,
Mm.
because they say that basically Roger does is not as charming. He's acting against type. But to me, I like that hard edge. I like what they were
Yeah.
going for in this one. So I don't know how you stand on that. What do you think about Roger's performance?
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's something I noticed that maybe I noticed in previous viewings, but I had forgotten. But yeah, that it took me back, especially his treatment with women. And I know that it was a different time and that sort of thing. But it's to watch it as a modern audience and see how he like twists his, the arm of the girl and that kind of thing. Yeah, obviously he's trying to solve a mission. He's not just like beating up girls for the heck of it or anything like that. but it is a little bit jarring, especially for probably a modern audience to see this. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I really feel like that this is a Bond that is a bit uh, more violent, is a bit more dark and abrasive, but I think it works. I think it works for this film. I think because you have such a violent bad guy, I think Bond does need to go a little bit more on the dark side, quote unquote, so to speak. So I think it works, and I think that Roger Moore pulls it off. I don't think it's too much. I think, but that's just my opinion. I think he really makes it work for what the story is and what the character is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's his best Bond performance, but I just like the way they wrote his character, and I think with a lesser actor, he they probably couldn't play against type like this because I
Mm,
know he wasn't totally comfortable that one scene you were mentioning,
mm,
and it's really not the best scene of the film. It's
right.
not one that you can defend a lot. In fact, that's one of the where the writing kind of falls apart for me because I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
second, didn't she send him the bullet? So why is she not telling him that right now?
Right.
Why is she waiting this and like make
Mm,
basically being beat up for it? It doesn't make
mm,
much sense, but like I said, it's you have to roll with it when you're watching this. But yeah, I like Roger a lot in this. I like
mm,
what they're doing with this character, and like you're saying, I think thematically it works because
mm.
basically you see how if Bond just had different values, if he didn't make decision A or B here, then he is Scaramanga basically, which is a
Mm.
pretty interesting thing to think about.
It
It adds
is.
an added dynamic to the film beyond just the just sort of light-hearted nature that most of the film is taken on.
Mm. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of women that are part of this movie that Bond interacts with. I want to say three. Is it three different women at one point?
I guess so. If you include Chu Mi in there,
Yeah, yeah. I guess I was.
the random naked girl they just throw in there.
But talk about that. Like, what are your thoughts on the females of the film?
I guess we can take that on one by one. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll go with the sort of subsidiary one first. Maud Adams as Andrea Anders, who's
Mm-hmm.
basically Scaramanga's girl, but
Mm.
Bond hooks up with her,
Yeah.
and she's like the one that I said kind of starts the whole plot. She sends the bullet off to
Mm-hmm.
Bond, and her character is kind of what I like about the Tom Mankiewicz Guy Hamilton films. Is
Mm-hmm.
yes, they're light on the surface, but if you actually start looking at sort of the what's
Oh
going on
yeah.
under the surface,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of darkness here. I mean, her
Definitely.
character is it's a
Mm-hmm.
very sad character because she's basically stuck in this relationship
Yeah.
with sort of this abusive guy, and she doesn't think she can get out of it, so she has to find a way to get him killed.
Mm.
So it adds an interesting thing to it. As far as her performance goes, I don't really think they gave her a ton to work with,
Right. Right.
but I kind of think she does her part pretty well. I think she's beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and I think she does get across this sort of desperation, at least in that later half where she comes and tells Bond, "It's like basically I need your help."
I think her performance is definitely for what she has is really good. I think she does a good job of portraying a little bit harder person than uh, Goodnight, the blonde that Bond, So I think there's a little bit of a harder edge. It's kind of like the comparison between Bond and Scaramanga. I think they both complement each other. I'm talking the women now. Complement each other, all right. Um, but yeah, I actually really do like her performance. And I think it is for what she's given. I think she does really well. I probably would have liked to see more, to be honest with you. I mean, by the time you get to her death scene, you're like, well, that sucks. But I think we saw her like three scenes prior to this, and that's it. And that's all she wrote, basically. And I guess that's my one big thing. I don't think she is bad. I just think the fact that they only give her just a little bit of uh, less screen time than I would have liked, anyway.
Yeah, she's not in it much, and that's kind of what I like about it, though. I think it's a
That's
less is
true.
more thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, let's say if this was during the Craig era, they would have made a huge deal about her death. They would have just
Oh
like
my God.
they
Yeah.
would have just dwelled on it for like 10 minutes. He probably would have cried or something about it. But for this, it's just kind of like shocking. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
crap. She just got killed in the middle of this Muay Thai fight,
Right.
and Scaremanga's just sitting behind her. Is like, oh yeah, I had to kill her. And it's just like she
And
took
this,
something that did belong to her, and she betrayed me. She can't have two masters. And Bond's just kind of like, Nick Knight, do you want some peanuts? It's just kind of like, let's move on from this. And
yeah.
it's shocking because it's
Yeah.
like, man, this woman is dead right here. This beautiful woman is dead.
Right.
But these guys, death is a part of their life. So
Yeah.
I think they handle it pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
Even though, like you're saying, I wish the actress got to flex a little bit more. And I guess that's probably why they brought her back for later
I'm,
Bond.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I even remember thinking, wait, she really is dead? Because the scene just kept going and she's still in frame. I mean, she's still sitting there. And you're like, wait, they did kill her? And then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess they did. And it's just, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad part of the film. I'm not saying, it brings any dark, unwantedness to the film or whatever. But it's just kind of like, you're like, wow, that, you just don't see scenes like that where a dead person is just sitting there and you have this whole scene around them, and then it's just played almost nonchalant, almost. But I think it's all right. I don't think it does any harm to the overall film, and what they're trying to do. It's just kind of shocking, like you said. But then there is also the character of Goodnight, who is sort of Bond's, I guess, partner, whatever. Your thoughts on Miss Goodnight, man?
Okay, so she has actually been the part that's never worked for me until recently. Like
Okay.
it's because her character compared to like a lot of the Bond film
Mm,
girls, she's not very strong. The film tries to make her seem sort of incompetent in what she does, but I think initially early on she is not. I mean,
right.
she's the one that takes him to the right hotel. She knows her area. She knows Hong Kong very well,
Mm,
and I don't know. I like Brecca Eklund. I mean, I
mm,
know I've seen her in a few Peter Sellers films,
mm-hmm.
and I know she was married to him at one point. But in this role, she is playing her part. She is the ditz. She is the sort of the comic relief, if you will,
Right.
because I think you need that whenever you have a Bond film like this,
Yeah.
where Bond is kind of darker and not really cracking jokes too much. So I like her. I think she's once again, like I was saying, Mankiewicz, the way he writes is you have to read between the lines a little bit, and it seems
Mm,
like these two, Bond and her, have had a history together that they've probably served together at some time,
mm,
and I don't know what's up with that relationship. It seems like he's kind of like, I don't want to work with you again, or
mm,
maybe they've been together and now it's kind of awkward.
mm.
That's the part I haven't kind of arrived at, but she definitely doesn't bother me like she used to as far as her silliness in the film.
Yeah, she's not my favorite Bond girl of all time, but she's certainly not the worst. I think she does a good job for what she's given. Um, I don't necessarily buy the romance angle in this film, but whatever. Again, I think that it's ever how you view it. I mean, if you like it, you like it. I don't think it hurts the film overall. Um,
Yeah,
and go
I
ahead.
think it sets up a running joke throughout the whole thing is so like they have this awkward date where they meet up and he's like, I've got some time to waste. How about we just kind of spend the night together? And she's like, I don't do that. I don't do
Yeah,
that with colleagues. And then she like goes off and he goes back to the room and she's already dressed for bed.
yeah.
And that's just kind of awkward 180. But
Uh,
I think then they get kind of like broke up by Andrews showing up.
yeah.
And then she has to spend the night in the closet, which is
Yes.
just this. It's this silly scene in there that like,
Yeah.
why did they devote like 15 minutes of this film to this little
Right.
thing? But I don't know. I kind of like that a little bit. And then
Yeah.
at the end of the film, when it looks like they're about to get together again, then Nick Nack shows up and once again kind of breaks that up. I don't know. I found that part kind of funny. It's just like they think they're gonna get together, but nah, not in this time.
Yeah. I really like Nick Nack. I love the character of Nick Nack. I think he's an interesting guy. Um, Obviously, he's not a threat to Bond, so he's really little more than comic relief, in my opinion.
Well,
Um,
they try to make him intimidating.
they try.
They have him with a spear at one point, about to stab Bond, and then
But I think you'd have to be an idiot to think, well, is he really a threat, or are they just kind of making fun of him a little bit? And he's a good sport about it, I'm sure, and whatever. But I don't know. I like him. I think he's hilarious. I just love how he does think he is on par. Like he's smarter than not just Bond, but Scaramanga and everybody else. I think he tries to think that he is, you know, can outwit everybody and doesn't quite get there. But valiant effort. Got to give him an A for effort, I guess.
yeah, it's a character I haven't really got too much in depth with. I think it's definitely an interesting sort of visual to see in the film, and especially at the end where he's just like so mad. He's like, "I'll kill you." He's like throwing wine bottles at Bond. It's almost, it turns into a Chucky film there for a bit, because this guy is just tiny and Bond just kind of like you're saying, just like, come on, dude, I'm trying to make it with this girl right now, and you're coming to interrupt this. Um, it's I don't know. He's an interesting character. I think he adds sort of an added thing to the film as far as just bizarre sort of thing. But as far as like his actual character, I haven't really put much thought into him, what he's believing and thinking about. But I guess as we're getting into this, we've talked about a few of these scenes. There is one scene that I think there is generally danger in there for Bond, and that's that kung fu school scene. What do you think about that scene?
Yeah, I thought Bond was a little bit out of his league in that. I think that um, it was interesting. I didn't know. I actually had forgotten about that scene, to be honest with you, and it's a little out of place for Bond, in my opinion. Roger Moore seems a little bit out of place, but I don't think it hurts the film. I think that it is what it is. I don't know. What about you, man?
I always loved this scene as a kid, and I still
Yeah.
do. It's You can definitely see how they're capitalizing on Enter the Dragon. They kind
Right.
of play that up big time,
Right.
and I like it because it's Bond out of his element.
Right.
Like, it's a situation that he can't just easily talk himself out of.
Nope.
I mean, in fact, he kind of throws up his towel in the air at one point. He's like, "I'm just jumping out the window
Yeah.
because these guys are to kick my butt.
Yeah.
It's not gonna
Yeah.
be good." So I always like that scene because there's genuine danger there.
Mm.
It feels like, yeah, Bond is stakes are against him, and
Yeah.
I do love how it opens too. I've heard you guys started with this is he's just been knocked out. He's waking up
Yep.
and he's got all these women just kind of dabbing his sweat off his brow, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh heaven!" But then he finds out, "Oh no, these guys they want to beat me up. It's not heaven. It's not good."
Yeah. Yeah. You have Roger Moore has such charm, and his version of Bond is all about the charm, and he's trying to to be suave and all this kind of thing. But with this scene in particular, like you said, he's a little bit out of his element. So you're like, when you watch it for the first time, or at least for the first time in a long time for me, you're like, how is he legitimately going to get out of this without some sort of, just off the wall shenanigans? And for the most part, to the writer's credit, I really feel like they handled this scene pretty well, and made Bond have a little bit of an issue, I think they played it off really well.
Yeah, and it fits with the whole vibe of the
It
film
does.
because the the way I like about this film now
Mm,
is, and I've been obsessed with Hong Kong films for over like two or
sure.
3 years now, and this film it seems like it's slapped together like a Hong Kong film.
Mm,
Because I know after Live and Let Die was a success, they kind of rushed this one in the theaters. The
hmm
production they didn't have the same time, the writing didn't have the same time, but they take a little scene like this and they make it work because the filmmakers were like, we're going to shoot this in a cool way. We're going to
Yeah.
edit it to where it's
Yeah.
so snappy that you're not going to have time to think about how stupid this is. That basically James Bond is in Enter the Dragon all of a sudden, and that these two random schoolgirls show up and save his butt.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just a lot of fun, and I really like it. That's why I love this film. And then he just gets
Mm.
into a boat and he's off into the canals having this awesome boat chase scene.
Yeah.
Uh, that scene does have one part that kind of does not sit well with me, and that's the part with the kid selling the elephants.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
so if you guys haven't seen it, James Bond has
Yeah.
this random kid jump in his boat. He's trying to sell Bond an elephant. He's like, "Hey man, if you can help me with this boat, I'll give you some money." And Bond is not giving the money. Instead, he pushes him off.
Yep. And he's
Um,
gone.
yes.
Yeah.
What were
That
they
a little
thinking with
mean.
that scene?
I mean, you, no, it's probably not the best scene or anything like that. But I'm not gonna, make too much about it. It's just silliness is all it is, in my opinion.
Yeah,
You got to roll with stuff like that. I think there's some stuff you maybe can have an issue with, but maybe you should have pushed the kid, or maybe something else. But ah, whatever.
yeah. I mean, I guess they're still making Bond a little bit harder edged.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, one time I was watching it recently, I was thinking maybe he did that to save the kid, to get him out of danger. I don't know, try to validate it a little bit, but
Yeah, I
it
mean,
definitely doesn't come off the best. But I guess it makes the film, I mean, the scene very memorable.
and then we
Uh,
get to another character that Bond's had previous experience with, and that's J.W. Pepper from Live and Let Die. I love him in Live and Let Die. Um, he's okay in this film. He's not bad, but he's just not as funny in my opinion as he is in Live and Let Die. What do you think?
yeah, I don't think he's as good. Even though as a kid I liked him in this one better because he wasn't less of the film. I found
Mm,
him kind of funnier in this sort of out of this fish out of water things like
true, true, true.
why is this guy from New
Yeah,
Orleans area hanging
yeah.
out in Thailand? It just seems a weird place for him to vacation.
Mm,
But I don't know. I think he's good in this scene with him and Bond in the car, whizzing around the streets, trying to catch up to Scaramanga, Knick-Knack. Um, and but at the same time, I'm like you. He's not as funny. He seems like
mm,
just his buffoonery is it's not on the level that it was in
right.
Live and Let Die. I don't think it's the actor's fault. I think it's
No,
just it's hard to bring this character in again, and
right.
I guess they just brought him in because he was very popular. Fans
I,
liked him, I guess.
I think the one saving grace for him is the opposite of what I said earlier about one of the females. Is like you said, there's less of him. So I think that that's what, in my opinion, and at least in my experience watching it this time, um, that the fact that there's less of him it really makes what you get on screen enough. Like it's just enough of J.W. Pepper, for my opinion, anyway. Where he's still funny, he's still goofy. Yeah, it's a weird, thing meet up with James Bond, but I think it's just enough screen time that it's not annoying or like, oh my gosh, this is just going on way too long. The way they handle that with the amount of screen time for this character, I think was just perfect. So I think, for my opinion, that's what makes the character bearable in this film.
Yeah, and I do have one gripe though with this
Okay.
scene is
Mm-hmm.
the awesome boat jump. I mean, not the boat jump, the car jump over the river.
Mm-hmm.
That stunt is
Mm-hmm.
insane. Like, do you know the story behind them like coming up with that stunt?
I do not. Pray
Yeah,
tell.
so they like saw it in this car show, and they're like, "Hey, we got to put that in the next Bond film."
Mm-hmm.
So they got the same stunt driver and everything. They actually did like a computer simulation to figure out how to build the ramp and how to do the car and everything. And then they do
Wow.
this awesome jump where this
Huh.
guy basically risking his life
Yeah.
because I mean, if he goes under with the car, it's not gonna be good if he's upside down or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they do this
Yeah.
awesome stunt, but then randomly, John Barry puts in this stupid slide whistle that just kind of removes all sort of tension, takes away the cool element of this thing. I like
Yeah.
why have they not made a re-edit of this film where they take out the slide whistle, put in some really cool action music?
Right.
It would just be so
Like,
much better.
I was like, I remember actually thinking, and I don't know if I've thought about this before, but I was like, what was the point of that? Like, what did that do for the scene? What did it make it less dangerous? What was I don't know. I was actually going to ask you about that. That's funny you mentioned that because the whistle just kind of makes it just really silly, and it wasn't needed in my opinion. So, did they say
No,
why they did it like that?
I just think John Barry's going crazy when he's making this because I think they gave him like, we need a score in 3 weeks or something. And he's
Wow.
just like, okay, let's do it. And
I
I
mean,
like this score. I think this is actually a really cool
it is a
one,
good score. Hmm.
especially how they capture sort of the
Yeah.
Eastern elements. But
Hmm.
that part, nah, bad choice.
Yeah.
Slide whistle, not necessary, does not
Yeah.
enhance it.
Yep.
Especially when you
Yep.
got J.W. Pepper right here. It's like, we already have this guy.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
he's going to be reactive and go, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
don't need a slide whistle on top of that. It's just,
Yeah.
it's excessive at that point.
I think you're tripping into like Cluso territory there. Pink Panther, and it's like you don't have to go that silly, do you? I mean, it's a jump. I mean, what are we trying to mask here? What are we trying to just doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a cool part, and it gets into this other aspect of the film how basically Scaramanga's got cooler gadgets than Bond,
Hmm.
because Scaramanga's car turns into an airplane. He just takes off,
Hmm.
and it's just kind of random and just kind of interesting scene. But it does set up for what I really like is the finale.
Hmm.
Just when Bond is flying out there, we're seeing this awesome scenery. I really appreciate that, and I'm like, why do people say this is a bad film at that
Hmm.
point? Especially when we have this awesome sort of meeting in the two minds at the dinner table, just this awesome dialogue back and forth between Roger and Christopher Lee.
Hmm.
It really sets up a cool finale.
Hmm.
What do you think about how this whole last, I guess, 20 minutes of the film?
Well, it's what this movie's been building up to. You're going to get a sort of cowboy, mano a mano uh, gunfight. I mean, one shoots. I mean, they both are known for shooting guns, so obviously you're going to have a gunfight in this film. And there's a lot of drama with that. And then, of course, you have Nick Nack, who's kind of orchestrating the whole thing. And, he's kind of like messing with both of them, which I adore. I love his part, you know, in this. But I felt like it's a little abrupt when they do end it, and you just have this one shot and then boom, Kananga's dead. Kananga. Uh
Scaramanga.
Scaramanga, thank you. Is dead. That's a little bit, but otherwise I think it's, what this movie needed.
Yeah, I think the build-up's awesome,
Yeah.
especially like the way Scaramanga builds it.
Mm.
It's like I admire you so much, Bond. We are both the best at what we do. Let's just hang out. And then Bond just like squashes that. It's like, we are not the same guy.
Yeah.
And then it's basically an insult now. Like,
Yeah.
let's put it to the test, see
Yeah.
which way's better. And that's really cool because a lot of the Bond films do not end with something this low stakes and just these two guys dueling it out. Because most of the time it's like Bond storming a base trying to save the world from like nuclear disaster or something. But I like this lower scale. I like this lower stakes thing, because like we've been talking about already, this seems like there's real danger here that
Yeah.
Bond is sort of overmatched, especially on this guy's home turf, and he has to use his wits to kind of get around it.
Mm.
I think it's kind of cheap how basically Bond pretends to be a wax dummy of himself, but I guess
Yeah. Right.
um, it's not the worst thing about the film. And like I said, the whole
No.
film has set us this tone to it that I can just roll with stuff like this.
All right, dude, let me ask you this. This series is known for a lot of things. And one of the bigger things is obviously the gadgets, the cars, all the accessories. Where do you put the fake nipple in Bond's accessories? Like, what do you think of that? Is that not like the silliest thing in this whole thing? I mean, like, really? That's what they came up with, a third nipple.
Yeah,
I
that's the
just
Q's biggest contribution to this this whole film is this gadget.
I
And
mean,
like I said, Scaramanga's got the cool golden gun. You can divide
yeah.
it up into different pieces, put it together. He's got the flying car.
Yeah.
He's got a giant laser.
Oh, the
Meanwhile,
flying car. Forget about
meanwhile,
that.
meanwhile Bond's got a nipple that he wears, and it's not that convincing either. That's the
No, it's
thing is,
not.
it
It's
couldn't fool anybody, and
nope.
it doesn't help whenever you're doing this. And basically, the guy that you're trying to be is over sitting there looking at you with binoculars.
Like,
It's it
what the
is just kind of
heck?
a silly scene.
Yeah, but again, it's there's, and I know you can almost say this for about half the film. There's so many things that because you're a fan, you just kind of overlook that I'm sure non-fans would just be like, and I guarantee this would be one of the things. This fake nipple, like who does that? Like who thinks, yeah, let's just put a fake nipple on to fool everybody? I mean, it's just, I mean, I get it in a way. I get the absurdity, and because I am such a fan, I roll with it. Like I'm sure you do as well. But if this was something, but if you were introducing me to James Bond and this is what you show, I'm like, really? I thought this guy was cooler than that, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I know that's why a lot of people probably don't like this one because it doesn't tick all those Bond
Yeah.
boxes. But to me, I would argue that it actually ticks a lot of them very well, such as
Mhm.
I keep talking about the locations.
Right.
Uh, I I love these early Bond films because you feel like you're actually there with him, that
Mm.
you're taking in the sights and the sounds of these places. And I really get that with this film. I really get that with the music and how the film is shot. Uh, it definitely helps that it's Hong Kong that we're talking about, a lot of these
Mm.
places. And it just, I don't know. I really love this film just for that aspect. And yeah, it doesn't have everything that you want in a Bond film, but it definitely has that, and it has the fun escapist stuff that we keep referencing.
And I think that's the important part. Not every Bond film has to be the exact same, and you know that. And when you have a series that's gone on this long, and you've told this many stories, and you don't, you're gonna repeat yourself a little bit on certain things, obviously. But I think what this film does that all the other really, really good ones do is it has a strong antagonist. It has a couple of pretty women and good music. Good theme song. The score you mentioned earlier, the score is very good. So, as a lifelong Bond fan, I really do think this is one of the best films, and I really feel, I don't know, like I just got a deeper appreciation for it, like you did, revisiting, because I've always liked the film, but man, if you guys had not seen Man with the Golden Gun in a while, and you consider yourself a Bond fan, I should say, go watch it. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely an enjoyable experience all the way around.
Yeah, I mean that's what appeals to me about it.
Hmm.
Yes, it's not the best made Bond film. Yes, it doesn't have the highest stakes, but it's just pure escapism, and it makes me feel like when I'm watching it that I'm 10 years old all over again watching this movie. And I think that's part of the deal. Is like if you came to this film as you were growing up,
Hmm.
you might like it a little bit more. But if you were to watch it now for the first time, you might say, "This is very hokey. This is very stupid." But
Yeah.
I like hokey and stupid. I
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
what this film is laying down, and I can overlook
Yeah.
its flaws. Uh, I think it's very good at what it does, and I guess the best place to look at
Mm,
this that we haven't talked about it yet is the theme song. Uh, a lot of people say
mm.
this is one of the worst theme songs. I really like it. I love this in the title
Yeah,
sequence. What do you
yeah,
think about it as
yeah,
we're kind of closing the door on it?
yeah. I mean, is it Live and Let Die? Is it Goldfinger? Maybe not. Those might be better, but I think for what it is, I think it is good. I think it's got a good beat. I love the instrumentation, and I don't know, it gets you excited for this film. I think there's a lot of excitement, and you're just like, yeah, I'm ready to go on this trip and just have some fun. And that's what this. I think at the end of the day, that's all you really want to do when you watch a film like this is have fun. You don't have to, cure cancer or do anything just really, you know, more than just shooting a gun or whatever. And I think that that's what this film does more better than anything else is it maximizes on what makes Bond films fun. It really says, hey, if you want to know what makes a Bond film a lot of fun, here you go. And again, that's just my opinion. Obviously, it's probably yours as well. Um, but if you disagree, and anybody out there disagree, hey, you're as entitled to your opinions as we are ours. So I can respect that and honor it. But man, I really think you're missing something if you don't enjoy this film and you say you're a Bond fan. It's like, what are you watching?
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing about the series. There's so much variation as far
There
as
is,
pace and lining.
yeah,
To me,
right.
like I said at the beginning, this is the era of Bond I like the best.
Mm.
Especially this Mankiewicz Hamilton trilogy.
Mm.
Like I've just got a deeper appreciation for that the past year or so. Just
Yeah.
what it lays down, these streamlined stories with probably lower budgets, but just pure escapism. And Hamilton, I think he gets it.
Mm.
Uh, I've recently come to terms that like maybe I like his films a little bit better than Lewis Gilbert's now, which is
Mm.
almost blasphemous to say. But I'm like, this guy he makes the same sort of
Mm.
film every time, but they're all different. Goldfinger is way different from this film. Yes, they both have the ridiculous moments, but it's the way it's constructed and the way the story is like told, way different. And
Mm.
I don't know. I've grow a deeper appreciation for this film. I got to stop watching it all the time because I've watched it probably maybe
Ah.
5 times in the past month, and that's a little excessive. I need to kind of branch out and watch some other Bond films.
And speaking of which, we do plan to review some more of these fantastic films. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel on YouTube, we are the Supercast with the Z. Please do so. We've both been kind of out of the loop for a while, got stuff going on, jobs and whatnot, but we do plan to post a lot more content, especially Bond content in the near future. So uh, let us know what your favorite is. Let us know what you love about this film because, hey, we're all family here, and this is just it's such a fun experience to share these films with each other and really just talk about how fun they are, and that's what we're trying to do here on this live stream. We do plan to do some more live stuff, and so yeah, join us on that, man. Any closing remarks? Anything we missed on this review?
Just want to get further shout out to our birthday boy himself.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us, but Sir Roger Moore, he was a legend.
Mm,
So much class. I've heard so much good about like his charities that he
mm,
did while he was alive. Great guy on the set. Just upstanding dude. And every time I hear a new story about him, I'm just like, this guy was awesome. No wonder
agreed.
he was playing James Bond. And he's definitely my favorite Bond as far as just how his take on the character and just the films and adventures he was involved with. I just can pop them any day of the week.
Dude, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. That's perfect. I love it, man. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. Let all your friends know. And we will see you guys next time on the Supercast. Have a good one, everybody.
Adios.